Welcome to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. We believe life is about how we react. Hey, thanks for tuning in today. We're glad you are here, and we're also glad to have some incredible guests join us over the last several weeks. So big thank yous to Barbara, John, Christina, Jen, and Tim, who helped us produce some phenomenal conversations in our drug development series. And of course, thank you to you for continuing to listen and join Kyle and I on this journey.
Sean, this season's coming to an end, and we've been having a lot of fun with this top 5 concept. And we even mentioned earlier in the season that we were going to do our top 5 pet peeves. Mm-hmm. And I even said, hey, I wonder if anyone can guess Sean's. Yeah. I've been interested to find out if some of my theories were going to be correct when you give your top 5. So I want you to start this one with your top 5 pet peeves.
All right. I have them. I have a few written down. I'm going to be honest, that I probably have 100. So the hard part was narrowing down the important ones. I don't want to mess up the flow, but obviously you have something in mind against me, or you probably have a good idea of what one of them is, and I have mine written down. Would you share what you think one of mine is?
Well, one of them I think just would have to do with clutter and cleanliness in general.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Cool. All right. I got one that falls in the ballpark. So let me share the first one that came to mind, especially these days because of where I live. I'm sharing a house with some folks, so it's driveway and curbside parking. There are folks that park right in front of my house, which is fine. It's not like it's my curb. But what I found to be incredibly annoying are folks that park with not enough space to squeeze in behind them or in front of them, but more than enough to waste a ton of space. Yeah. You need probably a good 12 feet in between cars. Instead of leaving 12, they leave 9. Right, so it's a waste of a lot of space, but nobody can fit there.
Yeah, you probably could fit there, but you have to do a 35-point turn, right? And to try and get in there.
Yeah, or drive like a Mini or a Fiat or something, which I don't. So the way people park on curbs is one of my pet peeves. Another pet peeve, kind of close to the arena of looking organized and clean, has to do with the shower. I don't have a shower and a bathtub right now with a curtain, but when I do, or at somebody's house, or even a hotel, I can't stand an open shower curtain. I believe shower curtains should be drawn at all times.
Unless you're going in or out, yeah.
Yeah, it should act as a doorway. That is it. That's the only time it should be pushed.
I agree, first of all.
Okay.
But I don't know that I feel so passionately about it, and so I'm just curious, what's the drawback of having an open shower curtain?
Several things. A, nobody wants to see the tub, especially if it's not spotless or clean. Nobody wants to see all your different types of shampoos and lotions and your razors and your bar soaps and whatever other trinkets you have in there. Nobody wants to see that. Loofah. It just adds to the overall clutter of the look. And typically, unless it's spotless, there's usually something nobody wants to see.
Nasty.
Hair or a couple spots or a water ring. I don't know. And even though it might shrink the room, a shower curtain is just better to look at. Even if it's a plain white shower curtain, it's still prettier than your loofahs and lotions or whatever's in there. Also, I think about the mold and the water not being able to dry very well or creating a bedrock for mold to build or to grow. So when it's closed, everything is going wrong.
Yeah, so clearly there are endless reasons to close the shower curtain. So just do it, okay?
Just get it done. Another one on my list, I cannot stand commitments without follow through.
Yep.
Now I get it. We all have stuff that comes up. We all forget things. We all overlook things that we didn't put on the calendar. And I get it. Stuff happens. But I can't stand when people say, oh, let's grab dinner. And then there's never any follow-up. Or you make some tentative plans and then there's no follow-up, and then that day passes, and they're like, oh, I thought we were going to do dinner. I'm like, you were supposed to call me and pick a spot or confirm the date or whatever. Now, speaking to the point of stuff happens, I've had to, fall out of commitments, but I think it's important to just reach out and be like, hey, my bad, I actually forgot, I can't do it, so on and so forth.
Yeah. I agree, and the worst is when it happens repeatedly. Like, that's come on.
Yeah. At some point, that becomes a character flaw, not a planning flaw.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily take it personal, but I don't give a lot of people grace. Just FYI. If you're my friend, you can only do that once or twice to me before I just don't care anymore.
Yeah.
A little more lighthearted. I can't stand loud public talkers when they're alone. So, like on the phone. It doesn't bother me if two people are walking around Target and they're just having a great time and they're loud. I'm fine with that.
Right.
But it's annoying when somebody's on the phone at the gym or walking around and they're just talking at regular volume. That's weird to me.
Yep.
In fact, we'll put it in the show notes. I saw a little clip. Larry David. I'm sure y'all know him. He's one of the creators of Seinfeld and just an incredible writer and TV or comedian, producer, so on. He did a bit where he was in a restaurant. Somebody was on the phone talking loud. Larry David was next to him, or that character was next to him, sitting by himself, and just started talking really loud to himself. And the guy on the phone was annoyed. He was like, hey, could you calm it down? You're interrupting my phone conversation. And of course, hilarity unfolds, so we'll link that. You gotta see it. My fifth one, dirty dishes in the sink. I can't stand them.
Yeah.
I don't mind one or two. I get it, maybe on the way out, you're in a hurry in the morning, so there's a bowl of cereal and a spoon. So one or two, maybe three, that's fine. But when it's like a full-on meal, pots and pans, glasses, plates, silverware, and it's just all left there, that to me is poor planning, and that infringes on everybody else's comfort. No, I think it's rude.
Yep. I think that especially applies in the roommate situation, right? Like in when I was in college, I lived with 5 other dudes.
Oof.
And so the thing is, when you live with so many people, one person leaves something in the sink, and it's never the other person's fault, right? No one knows who it was. And so that just keeps happening repeatedly, and it compounds. So
For sure. I will say, I don't have the issue right now. That's not really a thing in my current situation. But when I've had roommates in the past, what bothers me more than just the fact that there are dishes is the fact that they're not rinsed. Mm-hmm. Like, what is the point if you're not going to at least rinse it so it's easy to wash later? So, I've had one of those roommates where they just stick in the sink, and I'm like, could you at least put water in it?
Yeah, there was a episode of The Office where Jim was rooming with somebody else, and he insisted on putting it in the sink and then filling it with water because it's, quote, soaking. And, like, but it's soaking for, like, 3 days, right?
Yeah.
Anyway.
I get that. All right, there's my 5. What are yours?
All right, my number 1 top pet peeve is people that have pet peeves.
Oh, this is amazing. I forgot my 6th pet peeve is you. Anyway. Wait, is that really your first one?
I do have some real ones. All right.
Okay.
So 3 of them have to do with the parking lot.
Okay.
I was driving around the other day and just thinking of this. But number 1, somebody who wants a really close spot and they insist on holding the whole lineup to get a close spot. And there's an open one like 3 spots away, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, come on, just park and walk, 10 more feet. So
that's a good one.
Second one, people that park in accessible spots that do not have a placard. Like, I don't know that even needs any explanation. It's just, come on, get with it.
Yep, I feel you. And I bet most of our listeners will be able to relate.
Yeah. So my third one is something that I've noticed since I've been using a rant van. When I pull into an accessible spot and there's not enough room in the little hashed area, and I put my ramp out, but there's like 2 inches between the end of the ramp and the other car, it's like, all right, what is that even for? And I've ran into this, like, I don't know, several times in just in the last few weeks. And I know there's got to be some standard, right, of how wide those things need to be.
Sure.
But on the other hand, it is really nice when there is a wide enough one. I don't know if that's a reason to be grateful, but so
I think it's worth noting the hash area is not a parking spot, folks. Not for your motorcycle, not for your bicycle, not for your shopping car. Yeah, not for your car. Like, it's hashed for a reason.
Yep. All right, my 5th one is people that don't wear helmets on the bike trail. And, I realize at some point it's a choice, right? When you're, like, in a lot of places, the helmet law is, like, if you're over 18, you don't necessarily need to wear a helmet. But why not? Why not just pay the $30 at Target, get a cheap helmet, and it's just part of what you put on when you go out to ride. So
something tells me that's in the same arena as $4 face covering.
Yeah.
Why not? Because they don't want to be controlled.
Exactly. So, and which doesn't make sense to me. Just put a lid on your head.
Was that 5?
That was 5 because I counted my first fake one.
I think that first one was a little cheap. So I'm going to add a 6th to make up for it for you. When you bring up the parking lot, something came to mind, and I gotta say it. People that I think it's called double parking. Whatever it's called when they park kind of on the line to tie up 2 spaces.
Yeah.
It's typically, what I've noticed is that sometimes it's like a newer car or what would fall in the category of an expensive car. And every time I see it, I think it's somebody that feels entitled because of their car.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be honest with you. If I didn't care about my car, I literally want to ding up both in the like. I just want to go. You can imagine what I want to do.
You know what you should do, Sean, is just never mind the lines anymore and just park super close to their car so they can't even open their door.
That's what I want to do, but then I'm afraid they come out while I'm not there, and then they key my car or slash. Who knows?
Right.
But if I didn't care about my car, I would definitely be a nuisance to them.
Sean, at the beginning of this episode, you mentioned the conversations that we had in our drug development series and all the amazing people that we invited on. Well, several of them mentioned the patient experience and gathering feedback to improve the drug development process. I recently got to be a part of kind of a focus group providing input on a clinical trial, and I had a very unique experience. I call it a focus group, but it was really one person at a time. So anyway, I go to this company that is collecting the feedback for this clinical trial, and they're on the 7th floor. So first of all, I have to wait in my car and text this certain number before I go into the building. It's like a COVID procedure, right? So they tell me to come up. I put my mask on, go to the 7th floor. I'm rolling down the hall, and I see the office at the end of the hall, but I don't see a receptionist or somebody at the front behind the desk. So I go in, I'm looking around like, where is everybody? And all of a sudden, somebody flashes onto this screen behind the desk. I'm like, whoa. And so they're like, hey, nice to see you. Thanks for coming in today. And there's a video camera, like a webcam, on the reception desk. And it's pointing at me. She's like, do you have your ID with you? Yeah, sure. So she's like, put it up to the camera so she could see it. So I put my ID up there. Okay, follow the white line on the floor. I look down. Okay, I see the white line. I follow it into the other room. And there's a little table, and there's another monitor on the desk with somebody on the monitor and a video on me. And this person is behind a one-way mirror. So she can see me, but all I can see is her on this computer monitor. So anyway, the whole process, it worked fine. It was great. But I didn't have contact with another human being the whole time. And it was, I'd never had an experience like that. And it was like something out of a sci-fi movie,
Yeah. Do you think that was all COVID or some sense of keeping it anonymous for whatever reason?
No, I have a feeling, I don't know for sure, but I think it was all COVID, just no human contact,
Yeah, the only reason why I asked so is the one-way mirror.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't that just be a window? And so you can actually both see each other.
I think they have that room really so other people can observe. They can have multiple people
sounds like an interrogation.
Yeah. So.
Interesting. I wonder, with that in mind, obviously, whether it's COVID or something else, what other things have we noticed in our world due to COVID where it's just different now? One thing I know specifically, I remember Jen mentioning that in the clinical trial process alone, COVID has taught us that maybe we don't need as many face-to-face in-clinic appointments during a trial. So I wonder where else are such changes being made, and will they be long-term?
Well, yeah, I agree with that line of thinking because, like, in this example where I was at, these people, they were in the other room, but they could have been anywhere, right? Anywhere in the world. They could have been doing it from their bed, just at a random place, so.
And how do you know they were in their room? Just because they told you? Because...
Well, one of them, the first person I could hear in the other room. It was total Wizard of Oz. Like, don't look beyond the curtain.
Yeah. I will say, I wonder, I don't doubt this company or this particular transaction, but I don't know how I had to feel about putting my ID up to a camera.
Yeah.
They might be trustworthy, but that means they have the ability to screenshot or, record all of it without you even knowing, and then sell it on the black market, or even if they don't sell it, it could be hacked.
Yeah.
Whereas if it were a person and you just showed it to prove who you were,
right?
It's not like they scan it some places.
Yeah,
anyway.
They're like, hold on, I want to take a picture with my cell phone and sell this on the black market. Can you? Just kidding.
Right. All right. Anyway, speaking of the experience or the customer experience, whatever you want to call it, I have a story that I've been hanging on to for a couple of weeks here, Kyle. This unfolded in the middle of our drug series, so I couldn't share it. But I want to talk for a minute about maybe ADA laws or how all that unfolds in our world. Whether it's the hash marks in the parking lot or the way a business aids people that have some disabilities. So, my story, kind of long. Grab some popcorn and put your feet up, right? It's going to take a minute. My gym reopened recently, and I realized that it's not an easy facility to get to for somebody that can't walk. Since I've been using the rollator, that poses a couple of challenges. Not the end of the world, but it's caused me to think, what happens when the day comes in a chair. Right. So, let me paint the picture. My gym is downtown Sacramento. It's not the biggest city, but it's the capital. It's a downtown life, some big buildings, a lot of parking garages, a lot of street parking rules. So, my gym has a parking garage nearby, and they validate, so they'll pay for it, but you got to park in this garage. All right. So the first time I go in, I park in their garage, and I use the elevator, but the elevators, it actually lets you out in a neighboring office suite, and then you have to walk out and around the corner. Okay. That's fine. I'm used to that. Mm-hmm. So I go to the elevator, I push the button, it doesn't go anywhere.
Oh.
And then I read the little placards that, you've got to have a special key. I'm like, all right, well, that's stupid.
Yeah.
So I end up going to the stairwell, and I just fold my rollator up, hang on to the rail, and I just carry it up. Going up is fine.
Yeah.
That I can handle it. So I get to the gym, I do my workout. Well, on the way out, I think, well, maybe I can get down the elevator. Nope. The elevator won't even open in the lobby of the neighboring business unless you have a key. So the elevator is basically off limits to the public. So I'm like, well, this is annoying. So I fold it up and I take a good 7 or 8 minutes to get down the stairs. Not only is it harder going down with one hand and carrying this 20-pound whatever, but I also just worked out. So I'm fatigued. More so than normal. So it takes a minute. I get to my car and I'm kind of frustrated and annoyed with the process, but I think, okay, that neighboring business is currently under construction. So then I think, all right, maybe it's just a temporary issue. So as I'm pulling out of the garage, of course, there's no attendant. So you push a button if you want to talk to anybody. Nobody's behind me. So I ring them. They answer and I'm like, hey, just trying to figure out for somebody in a wheelchair, how do I get out of the garage? And she's like, oh, you have to go on the other side of the garage and go up through a hotel and then walk almost like a whole block around. I'm like,
dang.
So you're telling me, so, I read it and she's like, yeah, that's the only way. I'm like, okay. And I leave. The next day, I'm able to find street parking. I have a placard, so it's cool. I park on the street. I go to the gym. Well, the gym has a ramp to get to the door, but then it's a pull door. No automatic button. No nothing.
Right.
So I fuss with that, for a quick couple of seconds, and I get in, and then the elevator in the gym is broken for a couple days, and it's a 2-story gym. So now I'm like, well, how do I go work out?
Yeah.
So anyway, it's just a combination of several things. So on my way out one day, the general manager happens to be the one at the counter, and we start talking, and I'm like, hey, I'm curious. The walker for me is temporary. There's going to be a day where I'm in a wheelchair, and I was in a chair last year, and it was a challenge. So I just asked him, like, for somebody in a wheelchair, how do I get in the gym? And he just kind of looked at me like, duh. He didn't say that.
Yeah.
But his tone was like,
No.
oh, use the ramp.
Right.
And I'm like, all right, the ramp is a great place to start. But when I get to the door, what happens when I get to the door? It's a pull door. And if you're in a wheelchair, that's not easy.
Right.
And you can see the wheels turning. It's like, oh, shoot, you're right. And so, of course, he's like, oh, well, we'll just prop the door open for you. I'm like, well, that's a great concept, but that's never happened.
Right.
Last year when I came in a wheelchair, that never happened. And you have people at the front desk that can see me fighting with the door.
They're like, yeah, come on in.
Yeah, they're like, hey, welcome in. Nobody's running over to help or anything. There's whatever. And I'm like, so, I mean, that's cool, but you never do that. Nobody ever does. It's like, well, we can prop it open. I'm like, I know what you can do, but what's frustrating is you're doing the bare minimum. Yeah. You put a ramp on the front door and you call that good enough. And then let's talk about the elevators. And like, parking is attached to the garage. Well, if you're in a wheelchair, you can't get out of the fucking garage because there's no elevator. Like, how in the world? And so I'm like, I get it. It's not your building. You're probably just leasing. I know it's not your fault. But seriously, when you're sitting around the boardroom table and you guys are negotiating contracts and all that stuff, I'm like, this has got to be addressed. I'm like, you guys, not you personally, but as a brand, you want me to park halfway across the parking garage, go up through the lobby of a hotel a block away, and then you want me to walk around the Coliseum and walk through all the crowd and the activity, especially on a game night or a concert night, just to come over here to the ramp and then fight with your fucking door to get in. And I'm paying you $40 a month. So I asked him, like, what am I paying you for? I'm doing the workout just to get to the front desk. I'm like, yo, I get it. You're compliant, but it's bare minimum. There's got to be something else we can do.
So do you remember what his response was?
He was very empathetic, and, I have no complaints. And I actually, I remain calm, surprisingly. It was honestly a conversation, and the guy was very receptive and empathetic, and he's like, that good point. Thank you very much. I'll be sure to take that into consideration. Blah blah blah. So I appreciated that on the surface, but I'm confident nothing is going to change.
Yeah.
Even if he wanted to, the decision's probably out of his hand.
Right.
So I'm not discrediting him. It was a great conversation, but at what point does the customer experience really weigh into the overall plan of business?
Well, and this is a huge corporation, right, that you're talking about?
24-hour fitness.
And I'm sure it would be...
And they're not even open 24 hours
Yeah,
right now.
man.
But anyway, go ahead.
But I'm just saying, I'm sure it would be a whole lot different if it was like a locally owned small, mom and pop gym where the conversation doesn't get lost in bureaucracy. I think there's a point where businesses get too big for their own good, right?
Yeah, for sure. As I was talking to the guy, the gentleman said, well, yeah, I'm not sure, but we do have several guests that are in a wheelchair. I'm like, yeah, I've seen them all, and I've talked to them. And I said, they always come with friends. Friends that open the doors for them. Friends that carry them up the stairs when your elevator is broken.
Yeah.
I'm like, what about somebody like me that doesn't have a schedule that works with their friends? Well, I come alone most of the time. Who's going to open the door for me?
Yeah, or somebody wants to bring a friend and just be friends with them, not treat them as a caregiver,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that was like, oh yeah, like he didn't think beyond the fact that, well, people are in chairs and they don't complain or they don't have issue. I'm like, that's not the point. You're not talking through it. Like, I guarantee you, those folks in wheelchairs are not coming if their friends are busy that day.
Right. Yeah.
I'm confident of that.
So, Sean, I wonder what they do when they get feedback like yours. You talk to this general manager, and then what happens now, right? Does it just go into the abyss, or are there changes? Like everyone said in the drug development series, they collect this data to improve the process, right?
Yeah. Just having the information isn't enough. There has to be a level of application. That's a fantastic question, and I wish I could trust this corporation to actually consider it or implement it. I'm not saying they don't, but I don't trust them to do so. So my assumption is, although it was important for me to have that conversation, I don't trust that it went anywhere.
Yeah.
And, speaking of, there's one more little note, Kyle.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea what happened when that conversation was over and I turned around and walked away?
He did not open the door for you.
Not until I was struggling with the fucking door.
Oh my gosh.
So it didn't even register to him that, okay, well, thanks for chatting, have a good day, that maybe he should come out of the counter and walk out, walk me to the door. Instead, I turned around, said, thanks for listening, walked to the door, and as I'm trying to get out, he runs over and is like, oh, let me get that for you.
Man.
And I'm like, point made. It didn't register until you saw it unfolding.
I feel that speaks to, the culture of, if you're 24-hour fitness, you only hire people that are going to open the door and be courteous and thoughtful to every need of your people that come, right?
Yeah, well, you would think that. And they don't pride themselves on service. And there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
But they're not even friendly. Like, there's a half-assed welcome in, but they don't make eye contact. They don't, it's needless to say, as I'm reliving this, there's a reason why I'm considering another gym that's cheaper, closer, and just more convenient. Also, speaking of convenience, I get it. COVID messed things up. Local gyms are 24 hours. They're back to 24 hours. But the brand that bears the name 24 hours is open about 16 hours a day.
No.
Like, they're not even back to 24 hours yet.
24 minus 8. Hour fitness.
Anyway, I know I'm not here to bash on people, but I'm here to bash on people. There has to be a point where, whether you're a big company, a small company, a pharma, or a service, or a law group, or healthcare, or whatever you are, the only reason you make money is because people come to business. We've talked about it before, and we use the DMV as an example. They don't have to worry about it because there isn't another choice, right? To get a license, you have to go to the DMV. But airlines, buses, public Ubers, taxi, McDonald's versus Burger King, there are options. And at some point, you have to give your customers some credit. Otherwise, why do you exist?
Yeah. Well, Sean, to wrap up our customer experience episode, we would like to express a little gratitude to kind of turn things around and end on a positive note here. So I want to give my thank you note. It is to everyone who donated to my Ride Attacks in NorCal fundraising page. I recently said that I was going to shave my beard if enough people donated to my page, and it happened. So I think that people were kind of fed up with seeing my beard. I think it was pretty clear. And I don't know if you were one of those anonymous donors, but but anyway, I really appreciate everyone who donated recently to my page. I'm about halfway to my fundraising goal. And so if anyone else out there, I realize, that the purpose of this podcast is not fundraising. But if anyone wants to donate, thank you to everyone who already did.
Speaking of that beard, obviously there's a bit of a shtick behind that. People are like, yeah, I'll give. Does that challenge your internal Like, are you thinking, oh, maybe I shouldn't wear the beard anymore? People think it looks ridiculous? Or do you care?
No, it encourages me to regrow it again next year and do a little more fundraising around it.
All right. My thank you is going out to our friend Sean Somerville. We've had him on the podcast last year, a couple of seasons ago. This kid, or he's, early 20s, so he's not a kid, but this individual has FA as well, and he's been trekking like a maniac. He's always on a strike. He lives about an hour and 20 from me, but last week he was like, hey, I'm going to come to town. Let's go for a ride. So he pushed me to get my trek out and hit the trail again for the first time this year, this season. So I appreciate the buddy to hit the trail with and the motivation that he gave me to get out on the trail. Yeah. If it wasn't for him, I'd probably still be waiting for my first ride of the year.
Yeah, we've talked about that before. Accountability. I mean, it's one of the reasons that we're still producing weekly episodes, right? So, it's good.
Well, thank you for listening to our rants today and our pet peeves. We would love to hear one or two of yours. Hashtag 2DD Top 5 on social media and join in on the fun conversations with us. We'd encourage you to check out show notes. There might be some cool links in there, like that Larry David video for you to see. It's funny. Please continue liking the show and sharing with your friends. Be sure to subscribe. We're getting close to the end of Season 5. A couple more episodes to go. And until the next one, keep living with urgency.
Thank you for listening to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. This show is possible with your support. Visit twodisableddudes.com to donate.
Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app.